Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. Somebody must have fallen behind on their rent again. The morons over at the Daily Wire are doing some more clickbait crap. Last time it was Gian Carrano. This time it's get this, Snow White remake. Because if there's one thing Hollywood needs right now, it's another remake. What bold original ideas from the white right. No wonder these right-wingers are so successful when it comes to movies and television shows. Just like the white right in politics, these guys just do the same thing over and over, only more of it. The only reason anyone's even talking about this garbage is because they're saying this is going to be them fighting back against Disney, so it's a troll move, nothing's gonna come of it, but it's the fact that they're doing it that apparently is important. Well, the Daily Wire claims they're going to be putting big money into this, millions of dollars, they say. You can look at their little would-be teaser trailer if you keep an air sickness bag on standby, and you can tell this is some more nonsense that they made for lunch money. Now, the Daily Wire is saying that this would-be remake of Snow White is their foray into making entertainment for children, because that's what a lot of idiots do. It's the last brain cell in your head that makes you think, oh, I should go ahead and make some children's literature. The reason people do that is because they think it's easy. They think the kids are the least critical audience of all, so they'll take anything when that's not true. And on top of that, you can't just sell something to the kids. You got to also be able to sell their parents on it too, because they're the ones who are going to actually be expected to buy this crap. And who did they get to be Snow White for this little remake? When I first saw this image, I thought that it was Ben Shapiro with a wig and lipstick because it looks like him. But as it turns out, this is some female mouthpiece over on the Daily Wire's payroll, so they literally didn't make it out of their own office to find their star. This is how much creativity they've got. And of course it sucks. What else do you expect from the people who actually thought that Steven Crowder was worth millions of dollars a year? Now, obviously, this is just another feeble attempt to get some quickie attention for themselves so they can try to drive some more subscribers over to their website. That was what Little Outhouse on the Prairie or whatever that YouTube-level crapfest Gian Carrano was in with these guys, that's what that was about. They didn't put any money behind that movie, and it showed. But then again, it's never been a serious attempt to make a movie. It was just a cheap tactic to shoehorn themselves into a trending online argument so they could try to get themselves some quick and easy subscribers for the website. That's what it's all about. Even Ben Shapiro, or BS as he's more appropriately known, even he knew that that turkey wasn't going to go anywhere. But it would get the online racists to pay attention to Shapiro for a few minutes and hopefully pick up a few subscriptions for the website. And that was the entire point. I can't remember, and neither can anyone else, who the director of that movie was. In fact, before it was all over, the very audience of racist half-wits Shapiro was hoping to appeal to started trashing Gian Carrano's movie as woke. See, that's what happens when you run around practicing how to call everything woke. Before it's all over, you're calling your own side woke as you trade arguments back and forth. Tell me something, this little would-be Snow White remake, how in the hell is this supposed to be the glorious beginning of some right-wing media venture? Even the very right-wing nuts who Ben Shapiro's hoping to appeal to aren't interested in this, just like they weren't interested in Gian Carrano. They think that morons making a lot of noise online will translate into millions of dollars of revenue, but it don't work that way. Operations like Daily Wire have a lot of wealthy white benefactors who pay their bills. Same with PragerU. These people are not grassroots, they're astroturf. The wealthy white supremacists who bankroll them don't have a lot of public support, so they have to rely entirely on the one thing they do have plenty of: money. They're not trying to make movies, they're trying to push some sort of right-wing conservative message. Well, there's an old Hollywood saying, if you want to send a message, call Western Union. These right-wing fever dream fantasies don't attract anyone. They tried to make Atlas Shrugged a thing, and that crashed and burned so badly at the box office, there's still a stinking crater at the multiplex where that bomb landed. If Daily Wire was smart, and they're not, but if they were, what they would try to do is to become more like, say, Skydance. They mostly finance and produce movies. They work with films that already exist or with intellectual properties owned by other people, and then they set up financing for it. Ben Shapiro and that kindergarten he's got can't even sell to their own audience. They ought to be using the money that they get from their wealthy white backers and try to acquire intellectual properties that already exist, movies that have been made and need financing, to find scripts that already exist, produce projects that have breakout potential. That was how Hollywood established the blacklist. Actually, it was established by a black man talking about scripts that didn't get produced, but they were always talked about or had a lot of buzz around Hollywood, but no studio actually decided to pull the trigger on it and greenlight the film. That's where the so-called blacklist came from. Unproduced movies that people had heard about, had a whole lot of cachet, but weren't able to get financing or produced. And in the last 10 years or so, there's been a number of screenplays that were on the blacklist, which have actually been picked up by the studios and turned into movies. See, that's how those evil leftists in Hollywood operate, because they actually understand what it means to be in the business of making movies, not in the business of making clickbait for racists online. Now, with the allegedly enormous resources that the Daily Wire claims to have, and their inside Tinseltown connections, it ought to be child's play for these guys to be able to duplicate that kind of success on their own. After all, they don't have to ask permission from a studio to produce anything. First of all, that would require Ben Shapiro to be able to tell the difference between quality and crap. Even with his own stuff, he clearly can't tell the difference. But secondly, that would require the right wingnuts to be able to actually cooperate with other people. They're not big on cooperation. They're mostly big on pointing fingers at people and saying, do what we say. That's my take on it. Because of the fact that these guys clearly don't have the creativity, the ability, or the talent to be able to produce anything worthwhile, they ought to use their resources to get into the business of picking winners, the same way the studios do. But with these guys, the only thing bigger than their racism is their egos. The white right will never understand or accept that the reason conservatism and reactionary right-wing ideology doesn't catch on when it comes to entertainment is because it's antithetical to storytelling. Stories are about change. They're about characters being something totally different at the end of the narrative than they were at the beginning. Stories are about change. Well, the good stories are. Characters have arcs, where they're completely different at the end than they were at the beginning. Characters also progress through conflict. Can you imagine what Star Wars would have been if it adhered to conservative ideology? Conservatism worships the establishment, those who are in power. And that being the case, if the right wing made Star Wars, Darth Vader would have been the hero, because he was fighting to maintain order in the galaxy. The Empire was the orthodoxy. They were the establishment. Luke Skywalker and his band of rebels trying to change things, they were the radicals. And another reason why a conservative version of Star Wars would have made Darth Vader the hero, everybody on the side of the Empire was white. Stories require the status quo to be challenged, but you can't do that in a conservative worldview because as they see it, the establishment is who everybody needs to be aspiring to be like. You don't dare challenge the establishment. Those are the people who earn their position in the world, and you should obey them just because. And also, as the conservatives see it, the present is fine, but the past is even better. Most stories are about people challenging the status quo, challenging the people who maintain it. And that's the opposite of conservatism. Conservative values can only very rarely be entertaining. That's why they cling mostly to cop shows and shows about terrorism. Genres where the entire point is you got these guys who are working to maintain the status quo, and you don't want anybody threatening it, i.e. criminals and or terrorists. At best, and I put best in quotes, the most that the white right can offer the entertainment world is some sort of validation, like The Blind Side. This is why right-wingers fail so much at entertainment. They want their entertainment to validate themselves. That's why they can't resist cramming a sermon into whatever they make. They're good at giving a lecture, but lousy at telling a story. And this ridiculous failure to grasp the basics of media isn't surprising. I'm sure a lot of you already know that a disproportionate number of people in the online white right-wing media space are failed actors. Steven Crowder, Michael Knowles, even the little twerp who they're trolling as Snow White. And another thing, this obsession, this putrid fixation the white right has with children has got to stop. Be it in politics or entertainment, they've got kids on the brain. It hints at a pedophile mentality. I mean, if anyone's a bunch of groomers, it's the white right trying to throw people off their scent. PragerU is trying the same scam as Shapiro is. They claim that they're producing propaganda films aimed at children and they call it Prager Kids. Unless you're someone who's dumb enough to think that Fox News is an actual news network, then you're not stupid enough to let Dennis Prager miseducate your kids. But as they see it, they're brilliantly appealing to the next generation. They're slyly worming their dogma into the minds of the kiddies. But they're actually not. They're just appealing to a small, shrinking group of angry white reactionaries. About the closest to a real success that the white right has had in entertainment recently has been The Sound of Freedom. Ben Shapiro certainly ran his mouth about that movie, but he clearly didn't learn anything about why it was successful or how it came about. When Disney bought 20th Century Fox, it also acquired not just the movies 20th Century Fox already had in its catalog, like Die Hard, but it also acquired the movies that Fox had in development, or had been produced but never put into theaters, like Sound of Freedom. It had been made, but it wasn't distributed. Okay, so if Sound of Freedom was already complete and ready for distribution, why didn't Disney just put it in theaters? Two reasons. First, Disney's brand is family-friendly entertainment. A movie about children being sold into sex slavery doesn't fit their business model. It makes no more sense for Disney to put Sound of Freedom in theaters than it would for them to put Silence of the Lambs into theaters. It doesn't fit their brand. And secondly, unless the movie costs at least $100 million, past performance indicates that it won't be a blockbuster. And Disney wants blockbusters, not some little niche movie, especially after they spent tens of billions of dollars to acquire Lucasfilm, Pixar, Marvel, and of course 20th Century Fox. That's the reason why when Angel Studios came along and asked Disney if they would let them buy the distribution rights to Sound of Freedom, Disney readily agreed and sold the distribution rights for a few $1 million. They didn't make Angel Studios wait years to get the rights, didn't make them jump through any hoops. It was just a straightforward transaction. Now, if Disney didn't want anyone to see the film, they would have simply refused to sell the distribution rights, and there would have been nothing Angel Studios or anyone else could do about it, because Disney owned the movie fair and square. It was Disney's to sell or to bury. But Disney didn't do that. They sold the rights, but that didn't stop Fox News and the rest of the right-wing hate sphere from saying, this is the movie Disney didn't want you to see. The truth is, Disney didn't care if you saw Sound of Freedom or not, because it's not the kind of movie they would make or even want to distribute. But this is what happens when your political movement is based on phony outrage. You have to pretend to be a victim because that's the only way you can justify your racism. When manufacturing anger is how you make your money, you gotta hit that outrage button over and over again. Anyway, my point is that acquiring and distributing something like, say, Sound of Freedom is what Shapiro and his bigoted buddies ought to do if they want to be taken seriously as film producers. But even if they did get their heads on straight, they'll still be a cottage industry. The racist right-wing audience that they're hoping to appeal to simply isn't big enough to make a movie a hit, and the Ben Shapiros of the world don't have enough clout to make a movie fail either. Both the producers of these would-be right-wing movies as well as their audience are irrelevant. They're talking, but nobody's listening. And this latest PR stunt's not going to go anywhere either. If the crappy production values, lack of distribution, and totally toilet-level talent behind this turkey doesn't kill it, then the public's utter boredom with having to watch yet another remake will. This is what happens when you're attempting to do something you're not really qualified to do. Now, the clown over at Daily Wire who's supposed to be running their little would-be film studio is a nitwit named Jeremy Boring, and his parents definitely gave him the right name, that's for sure. What this guy's been doing is trying to jump on whatever phony outrage is trending on the internet at the moment and trying to see if he can squeeze a few monetized dollars out of it. He even tried to make a chocolate bar, I'm not joking. Apparently Hershey had put some pride flags on their wrappers as part of their little PR campaign, and the white right went into a tizzy. And these morons at Daily Wire thought that there might be an opportunity for them to pretend to make some chocolate bars. These guys just throw stuff against the wall and see if it'll stick, but that approach isn't going to get them anywhere. Not long term it won't. And it won't set the world on fire either, but then again, it's not meant to. It's simply meant to get these guys some quickie attention, a couple of stories on Fox News, get them into the news cycle, have them trending on Twitter or Google or something, make it into the right-wing online forums, and add a few more subscriptions to the Daily Wire website, and then it's off to the next phony outrage. They're not actually fixing anything. They're just giving the racists a quick sugar rush, and in return getting some quick cash. For these fools, it's not all part of the plan. It's merely all part of the grift. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. The BX Bomber, William Graves, Angela Cunningham, Charlie, and Akmal Griffith. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.